Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, and a special welcome to our listeners out in Polokwane, One Nation FM 88.9. And this has also been broadcasted in Durban and Pietermaritzburg on the broadcast waves of Al Ansar. And this first section of the After Nine program on our Facebook page as well as YouTube channel. I'm joined online now by Hafiz Ibrahim Moosa. And the reason why he will be chatting to us for the next few moments is to pay tribute to a man who has passed on into the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Yusuf Tara Sidat, a long time legend in the South African charitable communities. He's been a stalwart, assisting thousands and thousands of people over the years and made a major contribution to the life of Muslims in this country as well as the general population. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Hafiz Ibrahim, and welcome to the program.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا أزهر.
All right, so you have been documenting the life of Yusuf Tara Sidat, marhum rahmatullah alayh. Uh, what have you what have you been up to? What has been the purpose? Is it a book that has been written? And tell us about the life and times of Yusuf Tara Sidat.
Azhar, this is kind of a project that came out through my media interactions with Brother Yusuf Tara Sidat. While we were at CII, I did a full-length feature interview with Uncle Tara on a show called Witness about his life, kind of full profile of him. And that's basically the limit at that stage of my interaction with him, the odd meeting, bumping into at a social setting or a community event, etc. As we moved on, the year 2016, it came that the late legend boxer Muhammad Ali had passed away, and that again called me or forced me to knock at the door of Uncle Tara to tell an untold story in South African Muslim history. There was the hosting of Muhammad Ali in South Africa, to which Uncle Tara was instrumental. And it's just one of many episodes in our recent and past history where Uncle Tara has featured, something that he didn't speak about and very few people would know, but he's been literally everywhere, in the sporting scene, in the political scene, in the social scene, and the community scene. So anyway, from that particular moment in time, he expressed to me a desire that he wants to document his life, and particularly for the youth. He felt that there were many lessons in his life that needed to be communicated to the youth. The whole trajectory of his life, what it was before the turning point, and the lessons in community service. And it really started off in a very unconventional way. He had a book in mind, but we, hadn't done this myself, either me or him. And it just started off with informal discussions, but I made sure that we recorded in audio format all of those discussions. And as the years went on, it became more formalized. We were able to transcribe those discussions, and ultimately, after a long process, we managed to complete a draft manuscript for the book by earlier this year, by February or March. Obviously, the tragedy of the whole thing, I guess, or something that's a bit pitiable, is that he hasn't seen the actual book being published, but I guess he did find some solace in the fact that we've gone through that process, that it has been documented, and inshallah to be released when it is ready, inshallah.
I think this just shows the importance of documenting and keeping the records of life stories of people and legends like Yusuf Tara Sirat, as well as others. But from those interactions that you had with him, those recordings, the documentation, what would you say particularly stood out for you, and some of the admirable qualities of Yusuf Tara Sirat?
I think the first element that supersedes all else, Azhar, is Uncle Tara being this, person with immense warmth and immense interpersonal conduct, which I think supersedes everything else. And many of the tributes that have come through in the past few hours literally speak to that. Speak to Uncle Tara having that bubbly energy as he greeted you. And he was a person in his earlier days, was a salesman. He worked for a material or fabric business, and he took those skills, those streetwise skills, those skills of communication that he had developed over all of those years. He translated that into assisting the dean. He translated those same qualities into the humanitarian field. And he would always say that, uh, you know, he breaks the ice with an old person, a young person, a person of the same culture, a person of a different culture, rich or poor, through a smile. He breaks the ice through a joke. He breaks the ice through speaking in a person's foreign, mother tongue. And he would say that these are qualities that he espouses, but it's also qualities that are sunnah. And I think the universal experience is that he has made people feel positive and confident. And that's the main aspect. But if one is to dig deeper into the life of Yusuf Tara Sirat, the other aspect that, in terms of life lessons that he conveys, is that he was a person who went through liberation before education. He was a person who left behind school at standard 6. So he always would speak about his life being going through the mill or going through the school of hard knocks. And yet, despite that, he rubbed shoulders with presidents. He rubbed shoulders with, the top people in society. So that was a lesson that he wanted to convey, that shouldn't be a limitation in your life. And I think after all of that, the fact that he had all of these accolades yet didn't speak about them, and people would be comfortable being with Yusuf Tara Sirat simply because of that human contact and not because of his celebrity status, says a lot about him. But I think a final point, which obviously can be broken down in the book or further discussions, is how he was the typical, if you'd like, Indian uncle. In a sense of his looks and a sense of his meeting him in the masjid and meeting him in the bazaar, but he broke down so many stereotypes in that he was naturally anti-racist without going through any academic program to discuss that. He was naturally anti-racist. He was naturally anti-classist, and he was part of refugee forums before xenophobia was a thing. He was part of city renewal before people worried about the fate of Fordsburg. And unfortunately, I think lots of things that he spearheaded, he was ahead of his time. People, because of their egos, people because of their limited understanding, didn't take heed of what he had to say. And one of the serious pains that he has, for instance, was the degradation that took place in his beloved Fordsburg. And a lot of that was the result of people not being able to hear what he was saying at the time.
In recent months and years, we've seen the loss of many of our senior people, ulama, mentors, people with experience. Just yesterday, we had the passing of a burial of Iqbal Ghafoor, senior sports writer in the Lenasia area. And it seems as if a wealth of knowledge and experience is just draining out from our society. What would be your words of advice to the upcoming generation, the people who will now take the mantle and the baton and continue from here onward?
I think that aspect of mentorship is important. Whoever we do have with us, to kind of sit with these people, hear their life stories, and in that sense, I think from not being somebody who knew Uncle Tara very well, there obviously has to be everything doesn't happen by coincidence. There is some sort of divine but there is a divine plan behind everything. And the fact that Allah had presented me with this opportunity teaches you valuable lessons in life. And I think from Uncle Tara himself, uh, the two aspects that would probably come out in the book that he was very eager to convey is that he started off as a streetwise guy, a netty dresser. There's some pictures of him on social media at the moment, um, of how elegant he was in his day, in his suits and his Florsheim shoes and so forth. And obviously that's not necessarily a bad thing, but he was streetwise. He was on the soccer grounds and those kind of things. But he reached that stage in his life where, for instance, he made contact through the Pandors at the time with Azad Mufti Mahmoud al Hassan Gangohi, and he took bay'ah at that time. And how that previous life, perhaps of a bit of violence, a bit of street life, changed with that contact with a pious individual. So I think he was to say that what your past is not a life sentence. You can do great things thereafter, and completely change your image. And one of his sayings I have to share today is, he says, you can, if you lose money and if you lose material possessions, it means nothing. But if you lose your izzah, it is everything. And I think that's a very profound, deep statement to reflect on, something that he lived, and something that obviously gives us a kind of guideline or signpost for the way going forward.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant Yusuf Tara Sidat the highest stages in Jannatul Firdaus, rahmatullah alayh. May he make it easy for his family members, grant them sabrun jameel, and jazakallah khairan to you, Hafiz Ebrahim Moosa, for taking the time and having the foresight, along with Uncle Yusuf, all those years back, to document the life of such a wonderful person, and for sharing the insights and the lessons with us today here on Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.